right then. Thank you so very much. Glad to see everyone here. Glad to be back. There are lots of folks here, a lot of folks who I know. I was chatting with my man Tef Poe last night. He's in Baltimore, so you knew I was coming in town, so we always having a good conversation. So I'm glad to see folks, familiar faces. Again, it's not the first time I've been here, so it is glad to be back. Let me also thank the folks who are, if we can take out some of that treble, because it's still a hollow and a little more bass, so it's ringing. Want to thank the folks who are supporters of our show, our network. We still got it. Testing 1, 2, 3, 4. Yeah, it's still ringing. All right. We launched the show 6.5 years ago when TV One ended my show, and in that time we've grown the network. We started with 157,000 subscribers. Now we're up to 1.82 million. I'm still getting some return, and we've had so many different people support us. More than 36,000 donors that have done so. One of the things for me is that I did not want to do a subscription, a Patreon, things along those lines. We wanted the content to be widely available to everyone, and so that's one of the reasons why we chose the model that we chose. And so it has been a phenomenal last 6.5 years. My show, about 4 other shows on the network. We're launching a business show. We're launching a health show, and so it's about providing news and information to our audience, because that's what Black-owned media has always done. And because what we do is we center African Americans. We're not an afterthought. We're not a throw-in. Everything revolves around the African American experience. And so that's one of the things that we emphasize. And so, again, I appreciate the folks that have supported us since we launched the show. I'm glad to see, obviously, so many people now focusing on celebrating Juneteenth. I'm a native of Houston. We actually, so for my entire life, we have celebrated, commemorated Juneteenth. Shout out to the late State Representative Al Edwards, my alpha brother. He is called the father of Juneteenth. He was the one who carried the legislation through to make it a state holiday, in Texas becoming the first state to actually make it a state holiday. Then, of course, President Joe Biden signing into law for it to become a federal holiday. But I do want us to understand that this day is not about celebration, parties, things along those lines. It is understanding what the day speaks to. Ma'am, bring it down. All right. And I think we got to get the history right first. So, no disrespect to the opening video, but the young brother had it wrong in the video. First and foremost, the Emancipation Proclamation was not made law. That was essentially an executive order. That was a decree from President Abraham Lincoln, issued January 1st, 1863. And that was only for states that were in rebellion. That means the Confederate States. So even after he issued the Emancipation Proclamation, slavery still existed in the United States in the places that did not succeed. And though there were 4 states specifically where slavery still existed: Delaware, Kentucky, Maryland, and this one, Missouri. So what we can't do is talk about Juneteenth and literally have nothing behind it and no understanding of the history. And so then when General Granger travels to Galveston with several thousand black troops, that's never mentioned, to enforce, if you read General Order Number 3, And this is where people get it confused. And I was sitting here on social media slapping down a white conservative, Eric Erickson in Georgia, who said that, oh, this great, the history is fascinating, and this is wonderful because another holiday to mark the end of the Civil War. No, Juneteenth does not mark the ending of the Civil War. Because again, Emancipation Proclamation issued January 1st, 1863. The Civil War ended April 9th, 1865. And even with the Civil War ending April 9th, 1865, that does not mean that the war ended or slavery ended, because the radical Republicans in January of 1865 introduced what we now know as the 13th Amendment, one of the three Reconstruction Amendments. That was passed by Congress. It was then ratified by the states December 6, 1865, and then it was adopted nationally as law December 8th. I'm still getting some feedback, so it's popping. December 18th, 1865, and slavery fully has not been outlawed in the United States. And so you have to actually read the 13th Amendment, because the 13th Amendment says that slavery still is allowed in the United States in the prison system. So we are walking around saying slavery ended, and that factually is a lie if you actually read the amendment. And so that's critically important, because people need to understand that you cannot talk about where we are today, where do we go from here, if you literally don't even understand the damn history. And so we're walking around, and then we talk about the after effects of that. When you talk about people of African descent who then walked out of slavery, had nothing, were not granted 40 acres and a mule, but in terms of what they did and how they then began to drive economic power, educational power. If you read James D. Anderson's book, The Education of Blacks in the South, 1860 to 1935, he details where white abolitionists from the North were trying to hurry up to come to the South to help educate these freed slaves of African descent who they thought were uneducated. And then when they got to the South, they realized that 500 schools had already been opened. Those black folks were not waiting for white folks to come free them educationally. They started 500 schools. And then they began to run for political office and began to get elected. A majority of the South Carolina state legislature was black. And we have to understand that we need to, again, when you don't understand history, realize that when you look at what is now called taxpayer-funded education, America has to thank black people for that, because those freed slaves understood that if they were keeping the book from us, there had to be something powerful about reading. And so what they did was, when they took over in South Carolina and those states, they put it in the state constitution, taxpayer-funded education. So when the Great Compromise of 1877 came about, and then they threw black folks out of their state capitals, they changed all the laws, but they kept that one. And so what we now know as public education in America was simply an idea of black people. And so we have to recognize that. So we have to change our viewpoint, frankly, today when we begin to think about how they maximize power. The Robert Smalls of the world. You talk about the brothers who were United States senators, the people who were state senators and state representatives. And when I think about how those folks understood power and how to seize power, and then I look at us today with the capacity to have power and seize power and then don't use the power, I'm absolutely confused when we say we're doing it for our ancestors, because that's not what they did. See, I'm confused how you've had black mayors in St. Louis that never got a second term. And black folks in this city and the county can't blame white folks in St. Louis for that, not when 90% of black people stayed at home. My speech last week in Memphis has gone viral while I talked about how Memphis can be 62.5% black, and the folk at the table could not name for me the top black-owned business in Memphis. And so when I look at demographic power, I don't understand how so many of us have totally checked out of the process. When we went to meet and greet, got an opportunity to meet the sister was the mayor of Ferguson. I couldn't understand when the Michael Brown situation blew up internationally, how you can have a city that was 67% African American and you virtually had no black leadership. That is not as a condemnation of us. See, sometimes when we're having these conversations, you got to actually grab a mirror and say, what are you doing? And even when we do have black elected leadership, we have to decide, are we happy that people are sitting in high places, but we're not asking, what are you doing with the power that resides in your hand? And so when I sit here and I meet all these individual mayors and city council members, and folk are talking about all of these different small cities that represent in the county, I'm sitting at the table and I'm going, I wonder if they are operating as individual silos, or if they have had the wherewithal to do what the European Union has done and create a unified agenda. Because see, this is a real story. Because April 3rd, 1968, when Dr. King gave his last sermon in Mason Temple, he said in that particular sermon, African Americans individually are poor, yet collectively represent one of the largest economies in the world. And so as I sit here and think about all these different cities, I can't look at cities individually. I say, if you take this city and this city and this city and this city and this city, now you have a much larger budget, much larger economics, which then begs the question, who are the folks who are benefiting from those contracts? See, we love to talk about Atlanta being the black Mecca, but Atlanta is the black Mecca because when Maynard Jackson was elected mayor of Atlanta, African Americans were receiving 0.0012% of all city contracts. Not 1%, not 0.5%, not 0.25, not 0.10, not 0.05, 0.0012%. And so he then came in and said, no, we got to change this. And so he had massive pushback from white business leaders in doing that. And they said, well, he said, y'all got to find some black folks sitting on your boards of directors. Well, we don't know any black people who can do these jobs. He said, not a problem. He said, city treasurer, step in. I need you to remove the city's money out of their banks until they find some black people. And literally in 2 to 3 weeks, they happened to find some black people. Now, he did something in the early 70s that every single one of the mayors and the city council members in this room can actually do, because one of the things that he realized is that if they began to give city contracts to black-owned business, first of all, what he did was they actually, you had to understand the rules. I covered city council when I was in Fort Worth. I covered county government when I was at the Austin American Statesman. And the rules typically say that you cannot be a prime contractor unless you have been a prime before. Now, if you are only a sub and you can't ever bid on a prime contract, then you can never be the prime. You always are the sub. So Maynard Jackson and his folk, what they did was they said, well, fine, we're going to break apart the contract. So versus having one large contract, we're going to have 10 smaller contracts. So then black-owned firms can apply to be a prime. And once you become a prime one time, you now can bid on prime contracts again. So he broke apart the contracts. Then what he said, then the company said, well, listen, they said, man, we get the contract. The problem is y'all pay on 180-day term. So he then went to the same banks and said, well, I need you to extend lines of credit to these banks because you know they're getting city contracts. You know we're going to pay them, but they need to be able to run their businesses. And the banks objected. He said, city treasurer, I need you to step in, take our money out. Because he said, you are benefiting from taxpayer money in your banks, but you're doing nothing for the citizens of this city. Every single mayor and city council in here can actually do the same thing, and it's race neutral. You can simply say, if there is a business that receives a city contract, we will require the banks where we place our money to extend them lines of credit. They can't say that's racist. They can't say that's affirmative action. They can't lie and say it's DEI, because you can say, no, we're simply saying any business in the city. All of a sudden, you now are changing the economic dynamics by making that sort of move. Now, imagine, again, if you're not sitting in silos doing your own thing based upon ego, but if 5 or 6 or 7 cities say, we're going to take our money and we're going to pick 3 different banks to place our money in, make those deposits, those banks will be listening in terms of what are your ideas on economic development. See, I just don't believe that having political power is the be all to end all. It's also, you have to have economic power, because we're talking about the United States of America. There's a reason 32 major CEOs travel to Saudi Arabia with the twice impeached criminal convicted felon in chief, Donald Trump. Elon Musk is not the richest person in the world because he had some bootstraps. No, he got access to government contracts, government loans. We need to understand that if you go to Washington, D.C. and you go to the White House, there's only one federal agency that shares a lawn with the White House. That's the Department of Treasury. White House is power. Treasury is money. Treasury is money. White House is power. If we ain't having a money conversation, we're not having an American conversation. So I appreciate the panel that was up before, and they asked me to do something with the folks elected after I get done. They said, you got 15 minutes, and then you're going to do a panel after, ask some questions. But here's the problem. You can't talk about any issue that impacts black people if you do not talk about the money. You can't. Healthcare, money. Education, money. Criminal justice reform, money. Mass incarceration, money. All of these issues are tied to money. Show me a neighborhood in St. Louis County, and John Hope Brown, Operation Hope, always says this. Show me a neighborhood in St. Louis County where the credit score is 700 or higher, and I can guarantee you crime is low, test scores are high, roads are paved, and businesses are thriving, because that's tied to money. And so we have to be having a different conversation where money has to be number 1, number 2, number 3, number 4, and number 5. And I know some folk now, man, you're uncomfortable because part of the other thing is that we elect folks to positions of power who've actually never sat at a table of power. So then if you don't know how to act at the table of power, and you don't know how to act when you have power, then what's going to happen is you are going to serve, walk out, and your city and your neighborhoods will look the exact same as when you got in. And then what we end up doing is handing them awards saying, great job. And somebody saying, well, it still looks raggedy. See, I'm just not interested in the same conversation. I'm looking at the very playbook that freed people of African descent, enslaved people of African descent, when they were free, what they did. They did not check out of an election system. They were never checked in. But the moment they got access to that sucker, they said, oh, we about to run the damn table. See, that really has to happen now, because I'm sick and tired of having conversations with folk who are saying, well, you know, Kamala lost and Trump in, and you know what, I'm resting. If your ass is under the age of 75, you have no damn reason to be resting. Especially if you 18 to 55. Because I'm trying to figure out what you're resting from. Oh, we've gone through a lot. Well, hell, a whole bunch of folk before us went through a lot. I just need us to begin to just start having some different types of conversations. And that means that we're going to have to check some folk who have been playing games when it comes to positions of power, but also how to use it. I was debating one of these FBA fools, one of these foundational Black Americans. And this fool's on my Twitter feed talking about, we checked out. And somebody responded, well, what exactly did you get for withholding your vote? In fact, if I really unpack this thing, have you ever met somebody white tell white people don't vote? But we will allow a litany of ignorant ass celebrities, uninformed individuals talk about why we should not vote. That literally is the dumbest thing I've ever heard in my life. But I need us to understand that voting is the end of one process and the beginning of another. Because when the election is over, are you still showing up? Are you still showing out? Are you coming to the city council meeting? Are you going to the county commissioners meeting? Are you going to the school board meeting? Are you going to the state capitol? And see, we run around with our organizations in our colors, and we do all of these different things, whether it's D9, Prince Hall Mason, Eastern Star, Lynx, Jack and Jill, church groups, men's groups, women's groups, and we wear our colors and we meet and we buy bags and hats and shoes and we look real good, and don't nobody outside of our organizations know who the hell we are, what we do, and then we love to pat ourselves on our back on how wonderful we are. And then what we've done is literally leave no footprints, no fingerprints. And all we've done is said, no, we are doing great. No, we are not. Because if you have elected leaders in this room who have never felt the intensity of 200 and 300 sisters in pink and green rolling up to a council meeting, or 500 brothers in black and gold roll up to a council meeting, then I don't understand then what we're doing. What is the point of having organizational power if you don't flex your organizational power? If we are going to be having Juneteenth celebrations, then what we have to then do is begin to have accountability sessions as well. And so it's great that folk in this room, black and white, are here. And then could very well be your Negro checkoff event where you say, let me go to the place, have some food, take some selfies, have a good time, and literally come back here next year and St. Louis County looks the exact same way it did 1 year ago. Or you make a decision right now that you want to commit yourself to radically transforming this county and cities economically, health, educationally, by maximizing voting power, maximizing political power, maximizing economic power. And that cannot be done if you do not have a plan of action to make it happen. It cannot happen if you're not sitting down with black folks who literally own businesses, who can explain to you how business works and how you can use your political capital to drive economic capital to then be able to transform communities. Because when you've got an absolute fool sitting in the White House who wants to get rid of the federal DBE program that generates $37 billion for disadvantaged businesses. And when I say DBEs, that means minority and women businesses. That's MWBE, but it really should be MWWBE, because 78% of the $37 billion that's received by white women. And see, if we are really going to be honest, we're having this conversation while we are fighting for these contracts on the federal level and the state level and the county and the city level. We got to have the courage to tell some white women, I need you to get off your white woman ass and make sure these programs don't end, because ain't nobody benefited in American history greater from affirmative action than white women. That is an absolute fact. The numbers are undeniable. And so there's a massive attack right now on the economic infrastructure of black America, the civil rights infrastructure of black America. And too many of us are sleepwalking through this, still being upset with what happened in November. And look, I'd love to dance. I love music. I talk to musicians all the time. But if you are spending more time trying to learn a line dance as opposed to trying to learn what's on the next bond project, then your priorities are jacked up. And so here's the homework that you have to do for next year. You have to decide, every person, elected official or not, this is what I am committing myself to do for the next 364 days. What am I focused on every single day for the next year? So when you come back to this event next year, because Juneteenth is about freedom, the fight for freedom, then you can then say, this is what we accomplished in the last 364 days. Last year, we were doing X number of contracts with black-owned businesses. A year later, that number is this. This is what our education rates were last year. This is where they are now. Our test scores were this. This is where they are now. Our neighborhoods look like this. It look like this now. Crime was this, is this now. If you're not doing your annual report, well, then what the hell are you doing? What are you doing? I do those assessments every single day. When 4 weeks ago, when U2 came out with their list, the top 100 podcasts, we were number 78. The second week, we were 67. The third week, we were 46. And I'm sitting there saying, look, I want to see that go up. I don't want to see it go down. It went to 51, dropped to 78. A different reason why I did so, I said to my team, no, that number going back up. So I'm constantly assessing where we are as a business. The same thing has to be happening in our communities. And so we're never going to see any level of change if the folk in this room don't have a massive recommitment to be real change agents. And what that means is putting your damn ego aside with, no, we've done this, we've done that. If I cannot see the fruits of your labor, all you're doing is talking. And I'll make the last point is very simple. I have no problem taking anybody out who is trying to block progress. I don't care if you got the same skin as me. I don't care if you are in the same fraternity. I don't care. If you are not about the business of changing communities, then we've got a fundamental problem. See, right now, I have my producer trying to get the National Baptist Convention on the phone. As a matter of fact, if you are a preacher in the room and your church is a part of the National Baptist Convention USA, stand up. Just okay, that one got one. All right, if you are a member of a church and your church is a part of the National Baptist Convention USA, stand up. All right, y'all got some homework, because I need y'all to hit your national president and say, how in the hell can the National Baptist Convention USA have the audacity and the unmitigated gall to release a press release today announcing a partnership they are doing with Target while black folks is in the middle of boycotting Target? I know for a fact they've received $300,000 from Target. And so what you have literally is the National Baptist Convention USA selling out black America with Target. Oh, I can read the press release, because y'all got to understand, I ain't got no problem calling anybody out. I use names. I tag your ass on social media. I want you to see what I wrote. And it says it right here. The National Baptist Convention USA is committed to ensuring that corporations that do business in our communities give back to help rebuild and stabilize neighborhoods. The partnership with Target is based on our shared commitment to community empowerment through small business and entrepreneurial development, investments in education and student support, and workforce and skill development that unlocks growth across our communities. And there's a whole bunch of other stuff, blah, 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 blah. Signed, Dr. Boyce Kimber, President, National Baptist Convention, USA. So let me go ahead and for about 5 minutes, go ahead and unpack this here, because let me just be real frank. Look, God already knows. Folk watch my show. It's called Roland Martin Unfiltered. And I got seasoned saints all around the country say, Roland, hey, I love your show, but can you not cuss? And I try not to cuss. I try. The reason I cuss, because it keeps blood pressure low, so I'm good. So that's why my blood pressure is 110/65, because I ain't stressing out over nothing. But let me be as frank as I possibly can. This press release is some bullshit. Because this is clear. This is what happens when you have preachers who know nothing about economic development negotiate deals. When you know, here, y'all, this $300,000 that they've received, the National Baptist Convention says in their own press release, they represent 31,000 churches and 7.5 million members. And so if you just do some basic math of $300,000 divided by 31,000, that comes out to $9.67 per church. Now, I just want y'all to explain to me, what in the hell can you do for workforce development, entrepreneurship, and education and scholarships for $9.67? They didn't even get $10. They got $9.67 from Target. And so what they don't even understand, this is the problem that I have. So you sit here and do this, yet Target's market cap is more than $10 billion. You got 300,000. I mean, here's the deal. If you're going to sell black people out, I mean, can you not be the least expensive Negro in the room? See, this is what I'm talking about here. Because see, the thing is, Target committed $2 billion to spend annually with black-owned business and chose to go against their own decision, pulling back on black-owned products, but they want black folks in their stores buying but not supporting. Now, some of y'all might be saying, well, man, I mean, I hear all that, but that's sort of radical. Fine. If you think that's radical, go back and read King's speech, April 3rd, 1968. Because see, part of the problem, too many of us have only listened to the mountaintop portion of the speech. At the bottom, which is the last 2 minutes of the speech, now realizing it's 43-minute and 16-second speech. In that speech, he says that we need to have economic withdrawal. We don't do business with companies that don't do business with us. He said we don't have to throw a Molotov cocktail. We don't have to burn anything down. He said we can simply withdraw our money. And the reality is this: whether we're talking St. Louis proper, St. Louis County, and Missouri, this state and this city and this county and the region cannot survive without black dollars. And I'm telling you right now, If there are businesses in this county that won't do business with us, then we should have the courage to tell black folks we're not shopping there, we're not going there, and we're going to penalize them for their actions. And I can guarantee you they're going to pay attention. And so do understand, I'm about to give the National Baptist Convention USA holy hell for this decision selling black folks out, because I got to remind you, this is the same National Baptist Convention USA that did not support the civil rights movement. And the leader of the National Baptist Convention USA is the one who ran Dr. King and Gardner Taylor out. They created the Progressive National Baptist Convention. And that's how that whole thing started. And that preacher was so shameful and despicable when King was assassinated and they were renaming the street that's now MLK Drive in Chicago. His sorry ass moved his church address to the side street because he did not want his church address on MLK Drive. So understand, there are some black haters who are not standing with us. And I'm telling you right now, what they need to understand, they may have 31,000 churches claiming 7.5 members, but I'm going to sit here and light them up every single day, show they pictures on the air every single day, because you are not going to cut deals with Target to bail them out when we are in the middle of a nationwide boycott to force them to change. And so if they think they're going to do it, we about to drop some pressure on them. And that's going to be a warning to any other black organization. If you decide to go behind our backs and cut some deals, we're going to call you out, put you on blast, and challenge you. And I'm telling you right now, to this preacher here, he might want to come on my show and explain, because I will show up in his church on Sunday morning and sit on the front row and look him dead in his eye, because I have no time in 2025 for black folks selling us out for crumbs and trying to pretend it's a meal. If you want to celebrate Juneteenth, you better have the courage of our ancestors who use all of their wherewithal and power to force change in this society. They didn't back down. They didn't run from a fight. And they challenged folks like them who were not about doing what's right. And so I'm going to leave you with this. It's time for St. Louis, proper St. Louis County and Missouri, black folks, our white allies in this fight, Latino allies, to understand that if we are going to truly be about our ancestors, then we have got to have the courage and the tenacity and the willingness to challenge power at every single juncture. And if they say, well, that's just too much, y'all too loud, get louder. If they simply say, you're making too much noise, make some more noise. If they say, well, I don't like your tone, guess what? Keep the same tone and let them know point blank that we gonna battle, we gonna fight, we gonna swing, we ain't backing down. And in the words of my frat brother, Bertha Woodson Tandy, we gonna fight until hell freezes over. Then we gonna fight on the ice. Woo-wee! Give them another round of applause. Somebody say truth. That's why they say unfiltered. Hold it, Mark. Celebrate Juneteenth. Now, he didn't just come to give a speech. He gave a master class, a history lesson. He dropped the mic. He taught us the lessons of history here this afternoon. Now, show him some love one more time. We want to bring the brothers of Alpha Phi Alpha to the stage, and we want Roland Martin to also come back. Brothers of Alpha Phi Alpha Incorporated has a special presentation.
Good afternoon, good afternoon. How about our brother, right? Our brother gives the real. Hello, everyone. My name is Brian Gant. I have the pleasure of serving as the vice president of the Epsilon Lambda chapter of Alpha Phi Alpha Fraternity Incorporated here. And on behalf of Epsilon Lambda and Delta Epsilon Lambda as well from the East St. Louis side, we would just like to present this plaque to our brother. And it reads, Legacy of Leadership Award, presenting to Brother Roland S. Martin in recognition of your dedication, leadership, service, and unwavering commitment to the ideals of Alpha Phi Alpha Fraternity Incorporated. Your exemplary contributions have inspired countless members and strengthened our brotherhood and most notably our community. So congratulations, dear brother.
Got it? Right here? Right here? I'll get it. I'll do it 1 second. Right here. Behind you. All right. I appreciate it. Thank you, brother. I appreciate it. Appreciate it.
All right, another round of applause for Roland Martin, powerhouse. We will now have a song selection, Rise, performed by Faith Ford, with a wrap-up of words spoken today called A Joy Cipher by Tracy Berry McGee. As we prepare, we have a joy cipher is literally taking the words that Martin has said and put those words into a spoken word piece on the fly. This is Faith. Y'all, clap it up for Faith. And I'm Tracy Berry McGee. Ready? Let's go. You all want to give him another hand? As he prepares, can you all give me like 3 words or 5 words? One person give me a word. Yes. Power. Another word. Power, love, justice, action, freedom, and community, and money. Okay, got it. You want me to do? I'll do this. Okay, as we prepare for her to rise up, we want you all to understand that we are the African American experience. So you need to know your history and realize that if you don't know your history, then perhaps you need to go to Black Information Network where it is unfiltered and it will never be a mystery. So read the 13th Amendment and amend your mindset, not to just read, but to be about the power of us. Don't just rise up, but take a look in the mirror collectively. It's time for us to change the state of us. It's about us being an asset. And if you're not an asset, that means you're a debit, which means you're no credit to any of us. So continue to rise up, knowing that power starts within. It's not just about loving each other, but it's about being accountable, because justice is nothing without power, and justice is not nothing without action. And action does not lead to anything if we don't have the freedom that it brings when we come together collectively as a community to rise up, because you know what? It's all about the money. You got this.
You're broken down and tired of living life on a merry-go-round. When you can find the fighter, I see it in you, so we gon' walk it out and move mountains. We gon' walk it out and move mountains. And I'll rise up, I'll rise like the day, and I'll rise up, I'll rise